Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Akhanda Mandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Let us offer our salutations to the Guru, who is none else than the Lord Himself. And He alone is Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. He is all three in one. Let us offer our salutations to the great Guru, who is none else than the Lord Himself. Today we are going to talk about Guru Mahima, the importance of spiritual teacher, the guide. We will talk about the importance of the spiritual teacher, the need of a spiritual teacher or guide, and also the qualification of the spiritual teacher. Then also we will also talk about the process, how this initiation takes place in various customs, various traditions, what are the benefits of having a guru, and what are the responsibilities of a shishya or a disciple. There are so many issues which are connected with that, and we will try to discuss about these points. Who can be a real guru? Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Satchidanand alone can be a guru. Satchit Ananda. That means the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is God, and God alone can become guru. But how to approach that ultimate reality, that God? For us, for most of us, it is not possible to go to that transcendental state and receive initiation or receive instructions from the Lord Himself. That is why Lord Himself comes down, as we talked yesterday, Avtaranika, as if it were, He comes down from the staircase. He comes down from the staircase with the help of Avtaranika, descends as it were, and incarnates Himself. And when He comes in the form of incarnation, He gives instructions to a few, and He becomes the Guru. So that is the highest type of Guru. Number one, real Guru is the Lord Himself. But since for us, most of us, He is inaccessible, He comes, the Lord comes, descends as it were, incarnates Himself, as Sri Krishna told, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata, as we talked yesterday. Then He guides the people. This is the highest or the greatest type of gurus. Below that, we have certain great saints who achieve perfection in this very life, and they continue to guide the people, guide the sadhakas, guide the spiritual aspirants. That is a second category. Third category of those who are not yet perfected souls, but they have achieved a very high degree of spirituality, and they guide the spiritual aspirants. The fourth type, those who have not yet obtained higher spirituality, those who are at a very low level, and yet they try to guide others. About them, in the Upanishads, it is told, Andhe neva niyamana yathanda. If a blind wants to guide a blind person, what happens? Ultimately, both of them fall into the well. And you have got plenty number of this fourth variety of gurus nowadays in the society. So many fake gurus who are trying to drag you into the well. Just for the sake of money, they are becoming guru. But as long as there are fools in the society, there will be such type of gurus to befool them. It's none of their fault, none of the fault of the gurus. It is simply a law of demand and supply. In the economics, there is a law of demand and supply. What type of supply will come? The type of demand that is there. Most of the people, they want to have guru, not for spiritual perfection, not for devotion. They want to show that, oh, our guru is like this, and he also comes in the channels and this and that. So they derive that glory. The real glory is different, but this is this glory, the fascination. And so it is parasparam bhavayantam. The fake gurus want money and they want popularity, they want more following. And these people also, they do not want real guru. What they want is publicity. So they publicize, they make publicity for each other, the disciples and the guru. And ultimately what happens? One day the whole game is found out, and all of them, they go into the ditch. And then they start doubting each and every guru, each and every monk, each and every this one. But who told you to get deceived? It is you who opened out yourself. You became vulnerable because you did not go for testing. So what are the qualifications of a guru? All these things will tell. So we told 4 types of gurus, and the 5th type is also there. They are not only that they are not perfected souls, they are deliberately just taking the garb of a guru to make fraud. They are real frauds. So these are various types of categories of gurus are there. So how to choose your guru? That also will come. We'll come to that point. Let us start with the point number 1. Is it necessary to have a guru? Is there at all any necessity of having a spiritual teacher, of a guide? That's what we have to think. Before that, we will have to think, what is the goal of our life? So we go back to the spiritual retreat where we had talked about management of everyday life, and a great deal of time we had spent on knowing the purpose of life, the goal of life. Unless and until that is clear, there is no point in having a guru. We must be very sure. Why do you want to have a spiritual guide? Absolutely no need unless until you want to a spiritual path. And that is possible only when you come to know, number 1, that you are a human being. We are human beings, but we are not aware of it. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Manhush. Who is Manush? Manhush. Say Manush. One who knows that he is a human being is a human being. What? We know ourselves to be human beings, not in that sense. What is the real speciality about human being? That we must know, that we are not aware. I remember a story. Everybody is telling human birth is a special birth. Human birth is a special birth. It's a special birth. So everybody is telling human birth is a special birth. So once upon a time, all the animals and birds and all of them, they just went to Brahma and complained. These human beings, they themselves write the books, they themselves write the shastras, they themselves give the lectures, and everywhere they are going on quoting that human birth is the highest without consulting us. And as if we are nobody. So this is a complaint made to Brahma. Brahma said, this is a very valid point. So he called a human being. He said, hey, do you say that human birth is the highest and the best? Then the human says, yes, I have also heard so. I have heard so. That human birth is the best birth in the society. There is nobody greater than a human being. Out of 84 lakhs of species, according to Indian Shastras, out of 84 lakh species, the best birth, the greatest birth and the highest birth is that of a human being. Brahma said, now you prove it. Now he never thought about it, how to prove it. He said, that human beings, because they are strong, then the stronger than the other species, and that is why they are the best. Immediately the tiger came. Whenever you say that somebody is strong, you compare himself with a tiger, that he is strong like a tiger. So how can he be stronger? Brahma said, yes, right. The tiger says very rightly. So your argument is over. Now you give another argument. So he thought over the matter. He had never thought about all this. Why a human being is greater. Then he said, human beings are the best, because they are very clever. Cleverer than the other birds and other animals. Immediately a crow came. He said, whenever somebody is very clever, it is told that he is clever like a crow. So who is more clever? Brahma said, yes, you get a point. You has a point there. Crow has a point there. Gone. Now you tell immediately. Why you are this? So he became so much confused. He immediately said, the human beings are the fullest, the greatest fools, and that is why they are the best. A donkey said, whenever somebody is a fool, you say he is a fool like a donkey. Then who is greater fool? Brahma said, your argument is gone. So now never say that you are the greatest and the best birth. So unless until we have also heard the best birth is that of a human birth. But why it is so? We have never thought about. So that is where what we had thought on that day. Teilhard de Chardin says in his book, The Phenomena of Man, what is the difference between a man and animal? And there, somebody said it is intelligence. He said, not necessarily so. And he gave the example of the cat, how the cat took the milk when it was hidden in another corner of the house. So who is more intelligent? So even the cats, rats, and all the dogs, animals, birds, they have got also intelligence. Then what is the difference? And he said beautifully, while a man knows what he knows, an animal does not know what it knows. This feeling of awareness, that not only that I know how to steal the milk, but I also know whether stealing the milk is good or not, whether that knowledge is good for me or not, whether it will lead me to sin or a good action, whether it's a good act or a bad act. That power of discrimination. More importantly, being aware, I am having the knowledge of stealing. I am also having the knowledge of speaking the truth. More than that, knowing oneself. Now this is a special prerogative of a human being. Knowing oneself. And that we told how in the morning also, when I was having a talk on science and religion at the University of Houston, I again repeated what I had told on Saturday in the Spirit Retreat, the book Einstein and the Universe, where Lincoln Barnett says, man has a unique capacity of transcending himself and perceiving himself in the act of perception. This going beyond time, space and causation. This particular capability is only with the human beings, and that separates itself from the others. You call it spirituality, you call it religion, and that is what is been told. Ahar nidra bhay maithunancha samanametat pashuvid naranam dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesha dharmena ina pashuvi samana. These are the four things that are common between animals and human beings. What are they? That is one, eating, then second is sleeping, third is getting afraid, and fourth is procreation. But it is only spirituality or religion that differentiates from human beings from other species. So number one thing is that before considering whether we should go for mantra diksha, we should go for initiation, we should go to have a spiritual guide, most important part is what is the aim of life. What is the aim of a human being? Number one, that we are human beings. We must be sure about it. And we must be also sure as human beings what is our most important act. Kabir says, जब तू आया जगत में, जग हंसे तू रोए, ऐसी करनी कर चलो, मरते समय तुम हंसो, जग रोए. Kabir says, when you come to this world, you are crying, all others were laughing and clapping. Now you live your life in such a manner that when you die with a smiling face and let all the people weep. Such a nice person, he has left his body. What a great person he was. That can only happen if we lead such a life that we reach the goal of life, which is perfection, eternal happiness, eternal joy, eternal life, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, and eternal life. Satchitananda. If we have not obtained this, if we have not reached this goal, the supreme goal of having infinite bliss, infinite knowledge, eternal life, Brahma Gyan, whatever you may say Brahma Gyan, you may say Atma Sakshatkar, you may say Moksha, you may say Nirvana, that ultimate, or Samadhi, whatever it is, that ultimate, or in the language of Teilhard de Chardin, it is Omega. The whole humanity is going towards Omega by the law of evolution. From amoeba, the journey starts, but it ends in Omega. Omega is that state after reaching which you don't have to go anywhere else. You have reached where you wanted to reach. That is the infinite joy and bliss and eternal life. So first of all, let us make it clear. We are human beings, number one. As human beings, our approach to life is different from the approach of other animals and birds. Their approach is only enjoy life, eating, drinking, sleeping, begetting children and dying. No, I want to conquer death. I want to have infinite knowledge. I want to have infinite bliss. I want to reach the supreme before I die. If that is the goal, then only spirituality starts. When spirituality starts, that is the need of a spiritual guru. So first of all, let us make the whole ground clear. What is the ultimate aim of life? What is the ultimate purpose of life? Why we are here on this earth? Where do we want to go after death? These things have to be sorted out by us. Once we know that yes, the goal of life is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature external and internal, as Swami Vivekananda told, by practicing 4 yogas, this is the goal of life. Once this is decided, then only comes whether we should have a spiritual guide or not, a teacher or not, or a guru or not. This is what we have to know. Once we know that the purpose of life is to reach that infinite, that journey is very, very difficult. Yesterday I was in Mars and I was told how the spacecraft went. First time, so many missions were there, Gemini missions and Apollo missions and all that, series of those. How much hard they worked, how much of calculation, how they reached exploring the space in the outer world. Very difficult. Much more difficult is exploring the space in the inner world. There, it is a limited universe. Howsoever it is, it may be million times. Our earth is only a dot. In the whole solar system, our earth is only a dot. And our solar system is only a dot compared to so many galaxies and galaxies. And our galaxy is again a dot compared to so many galaxies and galaxies. So, such an infinite amount, such a huge, such universe, but after all it is limited universe. But when we are talking about spirituality, we are going beyond time, space and causation. Just imagine they were telling us that when we have to cross the atmosphere of gravity of the earth, how much power is needed, very great thirst to get out of the gravitational field, tremendous power is needed. If tremendous power is needed to go into the outer space, how much more power is needed to go into the internal nature where we are going for infinite power? How much more power will be needed to go and explore and go beyond time, space and causation, to go only into the outer space from the gravitational field of the earth? What a power is needed. So just imagine we want to go beyond time, space and causation. How much more power is needed? So let us know, number one, the purpose of life as a human being. Number two, let us also know the magnitude of the problem or the magnitude of the work that we have in hand. It is not a work of a day or two. It's a long drawn process. Third, let us also know the difficult path. Spiritual path is a difficult path. It's told in the Kathopanishad, Shurasya dhara nishita duratya durgam patastat kavyo vadanti. This path, you know what it is like, like walking on the edge of a razor. Shurasya dhara nishita duratya durgam patastat kavyo vadanti. Kavyo vadanti, all the great people have described this spiritual path is very dangerous, is very hazardous, is very difficult. How much difficult? Like walking on the edge of a drawn sword. Walking on the edge of a drawn sword. Can you imagine? Walking on the edge of a drawn sword. It is difficult like that. And that is why Kathopanishad says, Shurasya dhara nishita duratya durgam patat kavayo vadanti uttisthata jagrata prapyavaran nibodhata. Actually, Swami Vivekananda used to quote this sentence very much. Uttisthata jagrata prapyavaran nibodhata. Arise, awake and stop not till the goal is reached. But actually, the sloka is from the Kathopanishad. And Swami Vivekananda made a free translation of that. Of course, you can take that translation because Sanskrit language is a beautiful language. You can interpret in a way in which you want. There are so many meanings. But the original sentence is like this. Shurasya dhara nishita duratya durgam patastat kavyo vadanti uttisthata jagrata prapyavaran nibodhata. This path is very, very difficult to very difficult, like walking on the edge of a razor. Therefore, arise, awake, and go to a spiritual teacher and get enlightened. That is the real, literal meaning of this sloka. Because this path is very difficult, so get up. Don't be lazy. There is no time. Any moment the death may come. Any moment. You don't know. The most certain thing in the whole world is death. And the most uncertain thing is the time of death. It may come any moment. So arise. Get up. Don't be lazy. There's no time. Get up. Arise. And get awakened. Awake. So many children, they are very, very intelligent. They say, what is this? There's something wrong. Uttisthata jagrata. Why it is told? Uttisthata, that means arise. And jagrata, awake. Unless it is I am awake, how can I rise? First they should say, get awake, get awakened, and then they should say, now rise. Before getting awakened from my sleep, how can I wake up? How can I stand? But we have to see, here what is told is not in physical term. It is not physical sleep. It is a sleep of ignorance. So, first of all, you have to get alert. And once you get alert, that is awake, arise. First of all, you get aroused, and then only gradually you can get awakening from the sleep of ignorance. There are 3 stages. Sattva, Raja and Tama. Most of the people are in Tamogun. sleeping nicely in the sleep of ignorance. जो होता है चलने दो, whatever happens, okay. What is Rajogun? Becoming dynamic. Dynamic. Rajogun people, they are dynamic. They get awakened. They start working. But they are restless. And Sattva makes them peaceful. Going towards the right direction. These energies are being directed to the proper channel. That is Sattva. Swami Vivekananda used to say many people in India at that time, in his times, they were professing as if they were Sattva. Sattva also there is no work. And Tama also there is no work. In Rajagun there is work, there is dynamism. So, he used to say most of the people they are feigning as if they are Sattva-guni. It's wrong. When the light is too much, you cannot see. When the light is not there, you cannot see. Similarly, these Sattva and Tama, outside from the Tamas and Sattva guna, you find out as if it is the same, but no. There is a difference between North Pole and South Pole. That much is the difference between Sattva guna and Tamo guna. Sattva guna who has transcended that stage of Tama, not only that, he has also transcended the stage of Rajas. Then he has come to Sattva. Whereas this fellow is still in Tamas. He doesn't know about Sattva, Rajogun. So Swamiji says, now for most of the people in India, what we need is Rajogun. First become dynamic, first do some work. And somebody told that how this person can go towards God, this and that. Then he asked this one, can you steal? Can you make dacoity? Can you murder somebody? Can you go and steal something? First do that. Then come for the Lord. What did he mean? Did he mean that he should become a criminal? No. What did he mean? He said, do something. Even if bad, you do something. Now you are nicely enjoying your sleep. First get up from the sleep. Do something. Then only Rajogun will come. And when you have exhausted your energy and dynamism, then Sattva guna will come. Then you can go beyond all the three gunas. Long way to go. Whatever it is. So here what is told, arise, awake, and go to a spiritual guide and get your knowledge. Get enlightened. Nibodhata, get enlightened. Get knowledge after going to a spiritual guide. So this is the mandate of the Upanishads. So first of all, we must know what is the purpose of life. As a human being, what is our duty? Number two, if we want to follow the spiritual path, if we want to attain spirituality, if we want to attain the supreme goal, for that we will have to follow certain spiritual practices. We have to do sadhana. And for doing some sadhana, we must know how to do sadhana. And for that is why the spiritual guide is necessary. That is the importance of Guru, or the need of a Guru. Swami Brahmanand Raja Maharaj, was once asked this question, Maharaj, is it necessary to have a Guru? Should we have Guru? Is it necessary? Can we not? You get knowledge available in, all the translation of Upanishads is there. Gita has been translated. Those scriptures have been translated. So what is the need of a Guru? We will just go through the scriptures. We will get the knowledge of how to go for the spiritual practices. And we will go towards, we will take up the spiritual practice. What is the need of a Guru? He was asked this question. And Swami Brahmanand Maharaj smiled and said, you see, nowadays even the pocket mars have got Guru. And if you want to pickpocket something, they have got a gang. And they have training sessions, special training sessions where they teach how to pickpocket. There are special gurus, teachers who teach how to pickpocket. So even for pickpocketing, you need Guru. For learning judo and karate, you have Guru. Judo, karate. For yogasana, you need Guru. For learning music, you need Guru. For learning mathematics, geography, history, philosophy, psychology, you need Guru. You need a teacher. And spiritual path is so easy, you don't need a Guru. That is a misnomer. You need a guru. You need a guide. You know, yesterday we went to NASA. So when we were traveling, when we were going in the tram, there was a voice. There was some sort of a announcement, and there's some sort of a guide who was guiding us. Wherever we went, there were guided tours. Now, but for these guides, we would not understood what it is all about. For us, it is all black and white, that's all. But when we came to know, no, this is the type of dress that is being made. Previously, the technology was not advanced, so there was such a big computer of the size of the control room, and 20 people used to man that computer, and now it has come in the size of computer is now controlling these things. We didn't know. Then previously, for changing the dress and taking up the dress of an astronaut, it used to take 2.5 hours. They have reduced it to half an hour now because of the technology transformation. Now all these things we could not have known unless the guide would have told us. Because it was a guided tour, so we could learn. Of course, still we have not learned, I will say not even 1%, but whatever 1% we could get, that was also because of guide. So I am giving only example of NASA. Any knowledge, when it is a guided, when there is a guide, you can do. If you go to a new place, say, yes, I went to that place. Did you go? Yes, I also went. Achha, did you see the sunset point? No. Ledwick Point? No. Oh, these are the main points to be seen there. But nobody told us. Why didn't you take up a guide? We took up a guide. Within 2 hours, we saw everything in Mount Abu, and you were there for 2 days, and yes, you are not seen the main places. So even for seeing a new place, you want a guide. Even for learning some subjects, you want a guide. And for spirituality, you say, no guide is needed. I'll just read some few pages from the Gita and I'll become my own guru. It's not possible. Because the path is very difficult. So we must have guru, we must have a spiritual guide. But now we must know whom to make guru. We should not make such gurus, as I told you, the fourth type, andhe neva niyamana yathanda, a blind leading another blind. So before we make somebody our guru or spiritual guide, we must make some sort of assessment about our guru. Some people say, how can we make assessment? We are at lower level, how can we make assessment? Will it not be audacity on the part? No, it is not that. In our scripture it is told, before the disciple makes a guru, he must take the test of the guru, and guru, when before accepting a disciple, he must also take the test of the disciple. So before choosing the guru, you have to have a certain process. Because in our tradition, guru can be only one in your lifetime. Only once. You can have many teachers, you see. You can have many upaguru. Many upaguru can be there. In the Bhagavata you find that Dattatreya had 24 gurus. So you can have any number of gurus. You can learn from so many places. But they are all upaguru. They are subsidiary teachers. But real spiritual teacher or real guru should be one in your lifetime. And before accepting somebody as your guru, you must be very careful that you have got the proper guide. If you haven't got the proper guide, you will not reach the ultimate spiritual path, ultimate goal of life. Because the proper guru will give you the proper guidelines for the proper type of spiritual path. Now, how to know who is a real guru? So, there are certain qualifications that are given in our scriptures. What are the qualifications of a guru? Number 1, Shrotriya. Shrotriya. He should have knowledge of the scriptures. He should have full knowledge of all the scriptures or the religious books, or he must have the theoretical knowledge of all the fundamentals of spirituality. Shrotriya. Why Shrotriya? Because previously the knowledge used to come by listening. There was no printed words. It used to come from mouth to mouth, from ear to ear. So the Shrotriya, he must have heard about all the scriptures. He must have got knowledge of the spiritual path, theoretical knowledge. Brahmanistha, second qualification. He must be established, nishtha, establishment in Brahman. That means he must be God intoxicated soul. He must be saturated with godliness, with the divinity. He must have practiced the spiritual knowledge, theoretical knowledge that he has got. He must have put practice in this whole life, and he must have advanced in spirituality. He must be established in the God consciousness. That is called Brahmanistha. Third, Avrajina. His character should be blameless. He should have purity. There should be purity in his character, in his behavior pattern. Fourth, Akamahata. He should be unselfish. There should not be any sort of this desire for give and take. Okay, you give me $500 and then I will give you spiritual knowledge. No such precondition. Because there is some selfishness. The Guru gives his knowledge unselfishly for the sake of humanity. He has devoted his life. So there should not be, he should be akamahata. There should not be any desire for name and fame or publicity or for getting money. If you find that, then he has not yet hit the goal. And one who has not hit the goal cannot take you to the goal. So this is the fourth qualification. So these are the four qualifications of getting of the proper guide or proper guru. Very difficult to get nowadays. And then how to get it? The best way, if you become an ideal disciple, the ideal guru will come to you. You don't have to go to guru in your life. If you can make yourself an ideal disciple, ideal shishya, ideal guru will come in your life, just as it happened in the life of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda was an ideal disciple, and so he got an ideal guru. The relationship between Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna is a brilliant example, the blazing example of an ideal relationship between an ideal guru and ideal shishya. Sri Ramakrishna had all the four qualifications that we mentioned. But why Swami Vivekananda got him is because Swami Vivekananda had all the qualifications of an ideal disciple. Then what are the qualifications of an ideal disciple? You know, one of our senior monks was sitting and a young man came. You know, he might have just read the biography of Swami Vivekananda. That when he was a college student, he went to Sri Ramakrishna and asked, "Sir, have you seen God?" And then Sri Ramakrishna says, "Yes, my dear boy, I have seen God. I am seeing Him more intensely than I can see you." So, then Swami Vivekananda's Narendranath Dutt, that college student, he started going through the spiritual practice, and later on he became Swami Vivekananda. So he might have read that biography of Swami Vivekananda. So one young man came to one of our senior monks and said, "Sir, I want to ask you a question." "Yes, my boy." "Sir, have you seen God?" he asked. And then Swamiji sat down like this. "You see, my boy, you are not Vivekananda. I am not Ramakrishna. Come to the next question." So he was trying to imitate. But by imitation, you don't become Vivekananda. Sri Ramakrishna replied to Swami Vivekananda, "Yes, I have seen God." Because that time he was burning. He was restless to get the truth. And he had all the qualifications of his disciple, and that's why he got an ideal guru. So then let us now know what are the qualifications of an ideal disciple. There are also four qualifications. Number one, Nitya Nitya Vastu Vivek. You must have a power of discrimination between what is Nitya and what is Anitya. What is eternal, what is non-eternal. What is temporary, what is permanent. That power of discrimination should be there with the disciple. Number one. Number two, Iha Mutra Falabhog Raga Viragaha. He should have extreme detachment Vairagya towards not only all the worldly objects of this earth, but also of the other world, of the heaven, if at all there is heaven. Anything, he doesn't want anything. He got a tremendous spirit of renunciation, spirit of detachment, vairagya, burning sense of detachment. No, I don't want anything. I don't want Mercedes-Benz car. I don't want the latest model car, latest model house, latest model dresses, nothing. I want God, God, God alone. Because He is permanent, everything is all transitory. That power, the tremendous burning sense of renunciation and vairagya, that's extreme detachment, vairagya, that is the second qualification of a disciple. Third, Shamdamadi Shat Sampattihi. He should have 6 types of properties. Not the property like this house and all that real estate properties. No. What are the 6 properties or the 6 qualifications or the 6 types of virtues necessary? Sham, Dam, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha and Samadhan. These 6 qualities would be there in the disciple. 6 types of jewels, 6 types of qualifications. What are the 6 properties? Number 1, Sham, the capacity of calming the mind. Dam, the capacity of controlling the senses. Third, Uparati, the capacity of withdrawing the mind. Titiksha, the capacity of tolerating, forbearing all the adverse circumstances smilingly. Not only tolerance, not only forbearance, but forbearance with smile. That is the difference. Adi Shankaracharya gives a commentary of this. What is Titiksha? Sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam. Without any resistance. You accept, you tolerate, you forbear all types of adversities, of all types of suffering. Titiksha. Shraddha, faith. Samadhan, the capacity of concentrating your mind. If these 6 qualities are there, that is the third qualification. Fourth, Mumukshutva, the intense desire of getting liberated from the present condition, intense desire of liberating from ignorance, liberation from suffering, liberation from the present state. This desire of emancipation, you may call it mumukshutva, mukti, desire for mukti, desire for nirvana, whatever it is. Mumukshutva, that is the fourth thing. Now these 4 things, 4 qualities are required for a disciple. So now you can understand, if you want to have Ramakrishna, you have to become Vivekananda. If you want to have 4 qualities in your Guru, you have to first become an ideal disciple. Immediately, ideal Guru will come in your life. Very difficult. If we analyze ourselves, my God, very difficult to get these 4 qualifications. So, in our tradition, in our Indian tradition, particularly in the tradition of Ramakrishna order, we have a process called Mantra Diksha, initiation. In every sphere there is baptization in Christian theology, in Buddhism, in every religion there is, in Hinduism also there is some sort of initiation, some sort of Mantra Diksha, whereby there is a process. So in our Ramakrishna order there is a process called initiation. It takes about 4 to 5 hours. You have one Guru and then the Guru imparts that mantra and that mantra has to be repeated. This mantra is a sacred mantra and so it is to be kept secret. It is so sacred that it cannot be announced by mouth. It comes in the ear and that is not to be told to others. And the Guru gives the whole process, how to do, repeat this mantra, how to do meditation. It's a total package. And then what to do, how to do the whole spiritual practices. This is our tradition. So there, how do we follow this? Because we find out that to get the disciples, the ideal disciples is very, very difficult, and to get the ideal guru also very difficult. Now, supposing there is a PhD student. If he wants to have a guide, the guide must be double PhD. If he is only an ordinary matriculate, he cannot guide a PhD student. So, if you are really advanced soul, an advanced disciple, you will require an advanced guru. But I know for myself, I am just an ordinary student. I have not got any of these 4 qualities. But I would like to have these 4 qualities. And I would like to become an ideal disciple. I would like. For that you tell me what to do. For that, there is a provisional mantra diksha. A provisional guru who will take you to that, make you qualified, becoming a qualified disciple. So, for example, for a PhD student, you need a double PhD guide. But supposing if you are in 8th standard, even a matriculate can also teach you. Similarly, when we haven't read these qualities, 4 qualities, we just want to develop these 4 qualities, so we may not get a realized soul. Or the person whom we make our guru may not say that he is a realized soul. Or we may not come to know he is a realized soul. But if we can know one thing, that his character is blemishless, he doesn't want any money in return or any publicity in return, and his character is okay, blemishless, then, and we know that he has got certain spiritual knowledge, and he has advanced a little, for sure. Whether he's reached the goal or not, we do not know. But he's surely advanced much more than me. If that much faith is there in you, so you don't have 8 qualities, all the 4 qualities, but you got one of the great qualities. That is, out of Samdam Upati Tijisha Shraddha Samadhan, you got Shraddha, only one quality. That is enough. If you got Shraddha in your Guru, Shraddha, a little Shraddha in God, you have a workable hypothesis, a workable disciple, a workable solution to becoming a disciple. And you get, on the other hand, a guru who may not be Brahmanistha, he may not be fully Shrutriya, but he has advanced greater than you, who can lead you to the path. So in Ramakrishna order, our tradition is like that Ramakrishna himself is the guru, because Sri Ramakrishna said Sachidanand alone can become guru. The infinite, that Lord himself can become guru, but Sachidananda, very difficult to get him. So he incarnates himself. But when he incarnates himself, when he was born, many people got Diksha from him. But we were not there. Maybe we do not know, we may be there, but we do not know, or we do not remember. So then what to do? At present, Sri Ramakrishna is not there. And we do not have that transcendental capability of he is in his fine form or to get the power from him. So, we have human guru. The monks, the Ramakrishna order, Swami Vivekananda says, is nothing but the body of Sri Ramakrishna. The whole Sangha organization is the body of Sri Ramakrishna. And the president and the vice president are selected monks of this Sangha. They have been given the power of imparting the mantra on behalf of Ramakrishna. Actually, the power is coming from Ramakrishna. Mahapurush Maharaj used to say, I am not your guru. Sri Ramakrishna is your guru. And previously, we used to have some disciples started celebrating the birthdays of their gurus. So, 10th president of Ramakrishna order, Swami Vireshwaranand, he started celebrating Guru Purnima Day. Previously, we did not have Guru Purnima Day. But he said, no, if all the disciples start celebrating their own Guru, then there will be sects, there will be divisions. No, only one Guru, that is Sri Ramakrishna. These are all the mediums from where the real grace of the Guru, Sri Ramakrishna, comes. So, on Guru Purnima day, we have worship of Sri Ramakrishna and all the disciples. Whether they have taken Diksha from X or Y or Z, any monk, any Guru of the Ramakrishna order, they all join together and Sri Ramakrishna is our Guru. That is why when we say Guru Maharaj ki Jai, that is Sri Ramakrishna. Glory to Sri Ramakrishna. That is how we say. Victory to Sri Ramakrishna. So that is the tradition in Ramakrishna order. How we have solved the problem? Well, we are not ideal disciples, but we want to become ideal disciples. For become ideal disciples, we must have purity. How to get purity? By repeating the mantra of Lord. So, first get mantra diksha, start repeating the mantra, then you will reach the stage where you will be the ideal disciple. And then you get attached directly to God, that is Sri Ramakrishna. He becomes your Guru. From the day you take initiation, he becomes the Guru. But at present, you don't have the capacity. But because you have got Shraddha, faith, you have taken Mantra Diksha, by getting the mantra from the disciple of the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. That is the whole tradition is coming. For example, I am a disciple of Swami Vireshwaranandaji. He got his Diksha from Holy Mother Sharda Devi. Sharda Devi got Diksha from Ramakrishna. So that is the tradition coming. So likewise, anybody who is getting Diksha from Ramakrishna order monk, he is getting Diksha from a disciple of the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. So the original source is Sri Ramakrishna. So in our Ramakrishna order, this is what happens. We try to become ideal disciple by repeating the mantra, by becoming more and more pure, by becoming more and more advanced, by having more and more of repetition of the mantra and meditation. Gradually we make ourselves better and better spiritual aspirants. And the better we become, the greater is the grace that we get. One young man got a mantra diksha, initiation. We call it initiation, mantra diksha. So he wrote to a senior monk, Swamiji, I have got mantra diksha on so and so day, so please give me your blessing. And that monk wrote a beautiful letter. In that letter he wrote, initiation, question mark. Opening a bank account, question mark. So now you have the checkbook with you. So now you open a bank account. Now you have the checkbook with you. You can draw any amount of spirituality from Sri Ramakrishna's bank. Now you open the account. You can draw any amount of spirituality from Sri Ramakrishna's bank. But before you begin to withdraw, deposit. Deposit love. Deposit faith. Deposit spiritual practices. Repeat the mantra. The more you repeat the mantra, more the deposit. Checkbook is with you. Later on, you will be able to withdraw any amount of spirituality from Sri Ramakrishna's bank, because Sri Ramakrishna's bank is full of spirituality. Full of spirituality. He's just waiting to give his jewels to you. But we have to practice a little. And Sri Ramakrishna says, you go one step towards God, God comes 10 steps to you. And the grace of the divine comes to a spiritual aspirant through the Guru. And that is why we are so blessed. Most of us, those who have got Diksha, we are all blessed. Why? We have got Guru from whom we will get the grace of the Lord Himself. And we are blessed. Today or tomorrow, we are going to reach the goal. And that is why Mirabai says, Payo ji maine Ram Ratan Dhan payo. Vastu amolak di mere sadguru, kripa kar apanayo. I have got the jewel. That is, what is the jewel? Mantra. Mantra I have received from the Guru. That is a great jewel I have got. Payoji maine Ram Ratan Dhan payo. I have got the name of the Lord Rama. Payoji maine Ram Ratan Dhan payo. Vastu amolak di mere sadguru, kripa kar apanayo. And then she says, Din din badhat savayo. When you repeat this mantra, how much you get? You get your dividends not by ordinary interest. Dinat dinat badhat savayo. 125% return. 125%, Savayo, 125% return you get by investing by investment of your spiritual practices. You get the returns, that is so much, 125% returns you get. No bank is giving you nowadays 125%. But here you get 125% return. That is the bank of spirituality. So Mirabai says, Payoji mene Ram Ratan then Payo. We are all blessed. But we must know, when we got the grace of the Guru, when we got mantra diksha, when we got initiation, but we don't have that value. You know, we have got the mantra, but there is no value. Sri Ramakrishna used to tell a story. There was a beautiful jewel, and the owner of the jewel told his servant, you see, you go to the market, find out what is the price, but don't sell it, only you have to find out the price. So he went to a vegetable vendor and told, how much you will give to me? What is the price you will give me? Oh, it looks beautiful, very good, very good. I will give you 10 kg of vegetables. 10 kg only? Can't you give more? What do you say? 10 kg vegetable? Do you know the price of vegetables? Go away. He went. He said, he is telling he will give 10 kg vegetable. Okay, don't now go to a cloth merchant. Cloth merchant said, yes, it's a beautiful, very, very good, looking like very good, this one, very glittering. My children will be happy to get it. Okay, I'll give you 10 meters of cloth. Can't you give more? What? 10 meters of cloth? Such a heavy price I'm giving you? He came back. He says he gives cloth, 10 meters of, okay. Now go to a merchant who is selling gold. He went to a goldsmith. He said, yeah, this is real jewel. Okay, I'll give you 10 kg of gold. Then he said, can you give not more? What? Don't you know the price of gold? How much price has increased gold? 10 kg I have already told by mistake. I will not give you anything more than that. He came back. He is giving you 10 kg of gold. Okay. Now go to a merchant who is selling jewels. Go to the jewel merchant. As soon as you go to jewel, I'll give you 10 millions of rupees. Then he said, okay. I'll ask my master and tell, no, I am not going to give you this. I am not going to do that. You keep it here. Okay, I give you 20 million. But you keep it. No, I have to first ask, okay, I give you 100 million. 1000 million. But I am not going to give. No, then he just snatched away and ran. 10,000 million rupees, $1,000,000 he was going to give me. 10,000 million dollar. He is the jewel merchant. He knows this is Kohinoor. He knows this is Kohinoor jewel. It is any amount of millions of dollars are not equivalent to that jewel. Because he knows the value of the jewel. We do not know the value of the jewel. And so we are selling, oh, I have got a mantra. I can give 10 kg of vegetables. That's all. I can give 10 minutes morning and evening. Enough. But those who know the value of the mantra, Payoji mene Ram Ratan then Payo, they only know what a tremendous amount of grace we have received from God in the form of this mantra, but we are not valuing it. There was a person who became unemployed and he was scolded by his wife, so he ran away and he went to a hermit, a monk, a saint who was just meditating near a river. Then he came, I am in trouble. My wife has driven me out from the house and she wants only money, and I don't have money. So she has driven me out. Please help me, please help me. I heard that you got from somewhere the philosopher's stone. You know philosopher's stone? That is Paras money. It's called philosopher's stone. This Paras money, I heard you got Paras money. If you give me Paras money, the philosopher's stone, by that I will make gold, I'll sell the gold and I'll get money and then all the problems will be solved. I heard that you got philosopher's stone. Then the saint said, yes, 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 I had got it. But I do not need it. So I threw it. I threw it somewhere, by the side of the bank of the river. Maybe somewhere you will get it. I threw it. So if you want, you get it and take it. So he searched, and after long search, he got it. He got the philosopher's stone, and he was so happy. Now, just go on touching the metal, and it becomes gold. Metal becomes gold, and so much of gold, and he becomes then a moneyed person, and all problems solved. So he was very happily. He just did salutations to that saint and started for his journey. And very happily he was going along with philosopher's stone. Suddenly there was a tube light in his mind. Tube light takes time. This fellow, he threw away the philosopher's stone. That means he must have got a better jewel. And this fellow has deceived me. He has played fraud with me. He has given me this philosopher's stone which he threw, and the real one he has kept with himself. Again he came back. Sir, I have got a doubt. You threw away this philosopher's stone, so you must have got something more valuable with you. He said, yes. Then why didn't you give me this valuable thing? I want more valuable this which you did not throw. I want that jewel. He said, I will give you that jewel. First you give this jewel to your wife who needs it. Then I will give the real jewel. What is that jewel? I will give you the mantra of the Lord. By taking the name of the Lord, you will get infinite joy, infinite happiness, infinite bliss, eternal life. That is the mantra. That is Ram Ratan Dhan Payo. We have got that Ram Ratan, but unfortunately, we do not have the value of it. So let us value the important instructions we have received from our master, the great Guru. There is no glory of Guru is infinite. There is no difference between the real Guru and God. Because this body is only physical body of the Guru. And it is He. He does not give us grace. He cannot give. It is the Lord who imparts His own grace with the medium of the body of the Guru. So we should not give much importance to the physical body of the Guru. But we must give more importance to the medium of Guru, through whom the grace of God is coming to us. Guru Shakti. We must respect the Guru Shakti. But Guru Shakti coming, this is just a medium through which the grace of the Lord is coming to us. So that is why it is told, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Deva Maheshwara. Guru himself is Brahma, Vishnu and also Mahesh, Shiva himself. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. Not only that, he is the infinite Brahman himself. Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. To whom it is told, not to the physical frame of the body or the physical body of the Guru. No, it is told to the Guru Shakti, which is nothing but the Lord's power residing in that Guru. To that Guru Shakti, to the Lord who is present in Guru, for him this shloka, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah, Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. This we bow down our head, we bow down to the great Guru who has made this possible, who has given us this realization that the whole world is permeated by one universal God consciousness. One universal consciousness. It is because of the grace of that great Guru that we have got this one. So let us pray at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna, who is the modern Guru of the present times. He has brought that, he has made this so simple, very, very simple. Once we told Swami Vireshwaranandji, in Ramakrishna order, you do not become monks like that. We have to undergo 10 years of training period, about 10 years. First is pre-probation, 4 years of probation, another 4 years of brahmacharya period, and then we get sannyas diksha. We can take up the vows of sannyasa and we get this type of cloth. Otherwise, we have white cloth. For first 9 years, we are under probation. And during this probation period, 2 years minimum, we have to spend in Belur Math, our headquarters, by the side of the Ganges, where it is called training center. And in the training center, there are, their classes are there for different subjects. You have to pass the examination also. You have to pass the examination in various topics. And then only you, after this 9 years, you get the sannyas diksha, whatever it is. When we were in the training center, we had a special privilege that we could go once in a year. Every day we used to have grace of the President Maharaj. Even now this continues. But when we were there, Veereshwaranji was the president, and one day he had kept apart for informal discussion. That time you can ask any question. He will just make merry, make fun, and we will be all sitting. And he will, it's President Maharaj, he will be like children, he will be like with us, and we will have any question we can ask. Then he was in a good mood, Veereshwaranji, the 10th president of the Ramakrishna order, disciple of Holy Mother Sharda Devi. We told, Maharaj, you please tell some personal memoirs of Holy Mother Sharda Devi. He was very reserved monk. He said, you see, all these things have come out in the form of the book about Sharda Devi. You read the biography of Sharda Devi, that is enough. He was trying to avoid the issue. He said, no, we want your memoirs. No, my personal memoirs I do not tell. That is not necessary. You read the biography. So then we told, okay, you have to tell something about Holy Mother which is not published in the book. We made a condition, okay, you tell us something which is not published in the book. Now he was in the fix. He said, okay, I'll tell you something which is not in the book. Then he told us, Holy Mother Sharda Devi told that by the advent of Sri Ramakrishna, who is the greatest incarnation of God for the present times, what he has done, he has made God realization very, very easy for the modern man, because there are so many complications and so many problems of the modern man. So Sri Ramakrishna has come to this age, in this age, to make this whole process very simple. And so that even an ordinary sadhaka, even an ordinary spiritual aspirant can attain to that highest bliss and highest goal. He has made such provision. How? Sharda Devi gives an example. It is like this. In the previous days, when you went to a temple, what happens? First of all, you have to open the main door. Main door. When you open the main door, you enter the big hall. This is called prayer hall. After the prayer hall, there is a sanctum sanctorum. This is, for example, sanctum sanctorum. But it's not purely sanctum. So sanctum sanctorum will be Garbha Mandir, and there will be one wall here. And there will be a door which will be also closed normally. So that is called sanctum sanctorum. Garbha Mandir will have its wall, will have its own door. That door also has to be opened. It is locked. You have to open the lock of the main door. Then you come and open the door of the Garbha Mandir. And then you open the gate. Then you can have the vision of the deity. It was like this. In our age, what Sri Ramakrishna has done, that he has opened the door of the main building. He has opened the door of the hall also. Not only that, he has removed the lock of the Garbha Mandir also. And he has removed even the latches of the Garbha Mandir also. So what you have to do? You have to just push the door, and the door is open, and you get the vision. Only one push is necessary. That's all. He has made it so simple. Then we said, oh, this is wonderful. We never heard this. We never had read this in book. He said. Then we said, tell something more. No, I have done enough. He said, that is only one thing. You see, if it is too precious, even one thing is enough. But anyway, so great Lord Sri Ramakrishna came to this world to make this spiritual life very simple. Even an ordinary person with ordinary strength, with ordinary qualities, but a sincere aspirant. And what Sri Ramakrishna wanted was saralta, simplicity, no complication, frank and saralta, simplicity. That is all that he wanted. Having little faith, that's all. He said, even the ordinary spiritual aspirant will attain to that supreme goal very quickly, very easily, without much efforts. That is our special prerogative. We are so much blissful, so much fortunate that we have come only after 175 years advent of Sri Ramakrishna. Only 175 years. We are celebrating 150th birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda. Last year we celebrated the 175th birth anniversary of Sri Ramakrishna. Only 175th. At present, there are talks going on where Ramchandra was born or not, whether he was born in Ayodhya or not, whether that particular is the Mulsthan or not. So many talks, whether Krishna was born or not. After 10,000 years, again there will be a doubt whether Sri Ramakrishna was born or not, whether Sri Ramakrishna was true or not. But we don't have that doubt. We know Sri Ramakrishna was born. We have gone to the Kamarpukur. We have seen the hut in which he was born. We have seen the clothes which Sri Ramakrishna used to wear that are available in Belur. We are pretty sure, yes, a human being called Sri Ramakrishna was there. His name was Gadadhar Chattopadhyay. His father's name was Khudiram Chattopadhyay. His wife's name was Sharada Devi, who later became the mother of the Holy Mother Sharada Devi, the mother of all. Everything is well documented life. And that is why when Christopher Isherwood, he wrote the biography of Sri Ramakrishna, he said, this is the story of a phenomena. I will not call him an incarnation, but such a phenomenon never took place. This is the story of a phenomena which took place only recently. If you compare thousands of years of history, it is very recent. Only 175 years back, that Lord of Lords, the greatest incarnation of God, the Guru of all Gurus, the great Guru himself came to this earth. And his disciples are still alive. His disciple was Swami Vijnanandaji, and Vijnanandaji's disciple is Swami Atmaswamiji, who is present the president of the whole Ramakrishna Merchant Mission, 94 years old. Even 2 years back, Swami Swahanandaji was present. He was a direct disciple of Swami Vijnanandaji, who was a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. So we know for sure, we have seen Swami Swahanandaji, we are seeing Swami Atmaswamiji, and we have heard from them that they got their Diksha from Vijnanandaji. We have not seen Vijnanandaji, but we are pretty sure they will not speak a lie. They have got Diksha from Vijnanandaji, and Vijnanandaji got from Sri Ramakrishna. So we are sure Sri Ramakrishna came to this earth. That is our first-hand experience. So we are so fortunate. We are so near the history of the advent of the greatest incarnation of God for this present age. And whether he is greatest or not, we tried to discuss yesterday. So we are very fortunate. We pray at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna, the Guru of Gurus. May he bestow us, give us strength so that we can follow his teachings and can realize the goal of life and can fulfill the duties that he has given us, and may we become his worthy disciples. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tassat. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.